Welcome to another episode of Supernatural Stories. This is the 45th episode of Supernatural Stories. So, there will be a compilation of all the past 4 ghost stories that we posted on this channel. So, the ghost story that we will be covering is from the Pontianak in Johor Bahru Hotel, The Boy in the Forest, Haunted by Pontianaks, and Orang Bunian, or Hantu Bunian if I'm not wrong. Let me check, yes. So, listen back to these ghost stories and enjoy. And if you realize the background changed because I moved to a new place to record. So, thanks for watching and enjoy the video. Today, we have a story from Ruslan from Kuala Lumpur. And this story happened to him 6 years ago. So the story starts here. So, 6 years ago, I went to visit my family in Johor Bahru. They stayed in the kampung area, and me, a city guy, a KL guy, not used to the kampung life, planned to stay in a hotel near KSL. I shall not name the hotel, but the hotel is a famous hotel in Taman Abad in Johor. The hotel has numerous ghost stories, and this is one more. So, continuing the story, I visited my family in the afternoon and everything was fine, and we went out shopping and to have fun. Afterwards, we headed back to the hotel for the night. I stayed at the 13th floor. It was pretty high, but it's okay. I enjoyed the view. So, when I entered the lift, I pressed the 13th floor, but the lift went up all the way and stopped on the 12th floor. Confused, I pressed the 13th floor again. The lift went up this time, but it stopped at the 14th floor. Now, frustrated and thinking that the elevator had some problems, I smashed the 13th floor button again. Finally, the lift reached my floor, level 13, and when I looked out, there was no one in the corridor. So I quickly headed towards my room. In my room, everything was alright. I quickly showered and lay on my bed to suddenly wake up in the middle of the night at around 2:30 a.m. to hear banging on the wall. Frustrated, I look around and suddenly I heard the toilet flushing by itself. So I got up and went to the toilet to check. There was no one there. Puzzled, I went back to sleep and woke up in the morning. The next day, I did not think much about the night before and enjoyed my day. However, that night, while I was sleeping, I woke up again at night, roughly around 3 a.m., just to hear some girl crying. Puzzled and a bit scared, I look around the room. While looking, I suddenly glance at the corner of the room just to see a lady with long hair standing there crying. At that point, I was so scared. I start muttering prayers and covering my face with the blanket. Suddenly, it stopped. And when I took off the blanket, I saw nothing, and quickly called my family to ask if they were awake, and told them I will be coming over to stay in the kampong. So I took my important items and headed out. While going out of the room, I had goosebumps again. Just to look behind, there was this same girl at the corner, facing me at the corner of the room, with the eyes open widely and making the same crying noise. But this time it sounds a bit like giggling. I quickly faced back and slammed the door shut and get in the lift, all while still saying prayers in my mouth. When I reached my family home, I told them what happened, and they said they know that hotel was haunted, and there is a lot of similar stories from many friends they had, but they did not tell me, as they said they know I did not like ghost stories. So, also, while in their house, I searched the hotel name online, and there were stories of a Darwin basketball team getting haunted and a prostitute getting murdered there. But after all, that night, I stayed all the way in the kampong, and the experience still haunts me today. So, that was the story from Roslan from Kuala Lumpur. For today, we have two ghost stories. One is from Commando Fox and another one from Kazami 56. So, let's start with the first ghost story. So, the first ghost story is from Commander Fox, and the story starts here. This happened to my uncle before I was born. So one night, on his way back home, during the journey home, he felt something follow him, as he felt a weird presence around him. Suddenly, he remembered. My grandparents have always said to the family, if you feel something is following you home, don't go home straight. But my uncle didn't care, and he was tired. As he arrived home, he opened the door and went straight to the shower. After he showered, he went to eat and go to sleep. As he was sleeping through the night, he suddenly woke up and he felt something sitting on the bed beside him. And when he looked up, there was no one there. Creeped out, he went back to sleep and covered his face with the blankets. After that weird encounter, the next day, he went to see an ustaz. The ustaz told him what happened that night, and the ustaz said, there were 7 female spirits following you. And when I asked my uncle again, he still say, till this day, he still get goosebumps recalling that incident. So that was the story from Commander Fox. It was a good ghost story. Thank you, Commander Fox, for a ghost story. Please share with your friends. And if your friends have another ghost story that we can tell, and we can make the community bigger by telling everyone ghost stories, please share with everyone. Okay, so the next ghost story is from Kazami56. And the story starts here. I used to go night driving around Sengkang area for leisure and supper alone. One night, I drove to the part of Sengkang which were very secluded with many trees around me in the middle of the night. As I am driving, cruising slowly, I realized it was a very quiet night and the roads were empty. Suddenly, when I looked out of the window to my right, I saw a little boy running behind the trees. Suddenly, while looking at the boy, he disappeared. After that strange encounter, I drove home, but I recall about the little boy while driving and started to have chills down my spine, as it is strange to see a little boy running in a secluded area late at night. Till today, I still have chills down my spine when I recall this encounter. And that was the story from Kazami56. For today, we have a story from Na. And the story starts here. For as long as I can remember, people would tell me that my aura is very bright and my presence immediately enlightens the atmosphere. I have always considered it as a blessing. However, my family members told me to be very wary. I had never understood what they meant until I learned it the hard way. So this is the story. I was 8 years old at that time. I had always been a good student, responsible, perfect attendance, good grades and whatnots. However, that all changed when I returned home from school one day. I remember alighting from the school bus and heading up to my unit where I had lived at that time. I felt uncomfortable, like there was tugging on my leg, even though there was nothing. I knocked on the door to be greeted by my mother. As the door opened, I met the eyes of a lady in white standing behind my mother, and I collapsed. As I collapsed, I can hear my mother shouting, saying, "Hey, kenapa ni?" But it was very faint as I was slowly drifting off. I woke up with cold towels placed all over my body. My mother said that I was running a high fever. This lasted for many days. The magical fever that would go away the moment I met the doctor, but spiked the moment I was in bed. While this all happened, I felt claustrophobic, as if there were tens and hundreds of people in front of me in the empty room. To add on, my chest always felt heavy, like as if someone was sitting on me. One day, the fever went away and my mother thought I was well enough to go back to school. When she woke me up in the morning, I remember feeling angry and sadness all at once. There would always be screaming and crying each morning because the room temperature always feels hot, and when I took a shower, it feels boiling hot. And when I went out of my house, it felt like there were knives on my skin. Finally, a day came when my mother saw me from afar and she got terrified. She described me to look just like an old lady, and my hair was frizzled, very messy, and my teeth projected forward as if it stuck out from my mouth. My skin was pale. I walked with a hunch, and I dragged my right foot as if there was somebody holding on to it. My mother rushed us to my grandmother's house. She did not tell me why, but I could see the fear in her eyes. I could not remember much what happened, but my mother had mentioned that I screamed and fainted under my grandmother's block, so she had to carry me. And while she was carrying me, she said it felt like I was twice my weight. In the house, she quickly laid me on the floor for my grandmother. I recalled feeling as if there was a hot metal plate that had been placed on me with each touch before I fainted again. When I woke up, they told me multiple Pontianaks were sent to me as an act of jealousy towards my mother. One sat on my shoulder, causing me to hunch. Another hugged my leg, causing me to wobble. Another hugged me like a child, constraining me breathless. And the rest roamed freely around me. So, we went through weeks of Ruqyah sessions before we completely got rid of each one of those things that followed me, which is the Pontianaks. And it went back to normal. Till this day, we do not know who was cruel enough to send such things to a child. However, we have chosen to forgive it. My mother and I have since been extra cautious of who we chose to talk to and who we allow in the house. And that was a story from Na. For today, we have a story from Sarah. Sarah is a full working single mother of a 4-year-old and is also taking part in a degree at a private university with classes that ends at 10 p.m. each day. This is important for you guys to know, and it would help you guys to understand this story. The story starts here. I have classes every alternate day. The journey home by public transport would take me an hour, so I was excited when I found an express bus that would take me directly home in 30 minutes. Of course, that joy was short-lived. After a long, tiring day, I would fall asleep on the journey home, but this one night, I was woken by a cold gust of wind on my face. I looked around in panic. Everyone else on the bus was asleep. Maybe it was my imaginations. Since I couldn't go back to sleep, I looked out my window. Then, what I noticed, the road we were driving was past Bukit Brown Cemetery. Just a coincidence, I thought. I'm not that superstitious, you see. I didn't realize how wrong I was then. My stop is the very last one on the route, and I was always the only passenger left on the bus. However, this night, there were at least 10 people still on the bus with me. I thought maybe they were newly enrolled students. But at my stop, none of them moved to get out of the bus. I walked past them and alighted. As the bus moved off, my curiosity got the best of me, and when I turned to look, I saw a bus full of people staring down at me. I ran back home as fast as I could, and when I got back, I quickly showered and got into my bed. I wanted to forget the look on those haunted faces on the bus, so I quickly fell asleep. My daughter would always sleep with my parents on night when I had school, but sometimes she would come up into my room, so I didn't think of anything when I was woken up by the sound of my door opening. I reached for my phone to check the time. It was 3:17 a.m. I was awoken suddenly to a dimly lit corridor. Mind you, my family only sleeps in pitch darkness. Confused, I assumed it was my sister returning from work, and I went back to sleep. This time, I felt a hand caressing my face, so warm and loving. I quickly opened my eyes, only to see that it was 3:30 a.m. And when I tried to move, I couldn't move, as my body was frozen. As my eyes glided across the room, I saw them. A lady wearing a white shawl and a little girl with curly pigtails. At first, I thought it was my mother and daughter. Instinctively, I reached out. Then it hit me. Why would my mother be dressed up at 3:30 a.m.? My daughter doesn't have curly pigtails. After a while, I realized it doesn't make any sense. Suddenly, the pair started inching closer and closer with every breath I took. I could feel their white eyes staring straight into my soul as they crept closer and closer. I shut my eyes, thinking it would be better. And when I opened my eyes, they were sat on a big circular chair I had in my room, and the lady was stroking the child's hair as they both hum an eerie tune. I noticed the chair was turning slowly in my direction. I've remembered frantically reciting every prayer that I knew as I stared into that chair. Refusing to shut my eyes this time, I saw the chair spin faster and faster after every round as the pair reached out to me as if it was begging for help. Suddenly, they evaporated into thin air. Till this day, it haunts me. The chair has since moved to the living room where I can no longer see at night. However, I can hear the same eerie humming every other night. So all the past ghost story videos is very scary. It's all from our viewers, which is you guys and friends. So if you have your story yourself, the link will be here. You can follow me on Instagram at Eleanor Foxes, and you can send me a DM, or you can go and send us an email to hide your identity. Anyway, DM and email is the same, but you can send your ghost story here and we will share it with all of you guys. Thank you for watching this compilation 9 of supernatural stories, and good night.